And for those of you who just checked out a incredible Monday Night Football game from Nashville, welcome. And believe it or not, for those of you who did not check out the Monday Night Football game, you're welcome as well. Here at the Voice of College Football on a Monday night, late night, with much to talk about concerning what's going on the field, but out in the Great Northwest, in the Pac-12, in the upper regions there in Pullman, Washington, what is happening off the field that will affect, of course, the on-the-field production of a football program that has had its better days, certainly. Welcome to the Voice of College Football one more time, and we welcome everybody in the live stream. And bring those comments, those questions, those debate topics as we wrap up a week 7 of college football. Interesting weekend, as always. Maybe not necessarily the wild finishes that we had and the upset finishes that we had the weekend before, but certainly a number of prominent games. And then as we look forward to this weekend, hey, I got to be dead honest with you. In a weekend in which Ohio State and Indiana is the ABC primetime game, consider that. That tells us a lot about what we can expect of college football this weekend. But you know what? College football always delivers. So we will get some really good games this weekend. Maybe not necessarily some games that we anticipate to be close or anticipate to be stellar or that shake up the college football playoff, but there will be upsets somewhere and there will be some meaningful results. And again, welcome in, everyone. We've got about 35 on the line. We expect a whole lot more. We appreciate everybody being here. And as always, I will ask you to subscribe to the channel. So I was going through some analytics today and discovered that over the past month, while we've totaled something in the range of 320 to 30,000 views on the main channel right here, and about 150 or 60,000 of those, so about half of those were unique views, meaning that a number of you obviously watch a number of videos, 2, 3, 50, whatever the number might be, that there were 150 or 60,000 individual people who watched the Voice of College. That would be the Voice of College Football over the past. The water comes in handy sometimes. The Voice of College Football over the past month. And only about 35% of those people that watch multiple times throughout the month are subscribed. So we would ask that you would subscribe. Help us build the channel. The subscription doesn't cost you anything, of course. It also does not connect you in any particular way that should drive you nuts or aggravate you. So please consider subscribing right here at the Voice of College Football. It helps us grow, helps build credibility in a number of ways, and connects us further to more people. Also, hit that like button before you get settled tonight. Before we dive into college football discussion with all of you, please hit the like button. Even if you don't agree with me, if you enjoy the content, the conversation, discussion, debate, analysis that we bring you each and every day here at the Voice of College Football, please hit that like button. Subscribe and tell people we're here. All right, I believe I'm going to have to hook up a few things to get the call-in situation up and rolling, but at the same time, with no calls right now, let's get to the matter at hand. So, again, I will remind everyone that just because we have titled this live stream does not mean you need to call in and talk about this particular topic. It is the news of the day in college football. Therefore, hopefully it will attract viewers and will be a topic that people are looking for. But we talk about whatever you want to talk about. You ultimately are the producer. You are the producer of this show with your comments in the live chat and also your call-ins, because we will talk about whatever you want to talk about. You want to talk about, our last call on Saturday night, of course, was from Michael Hogue, big Purdue fan, reveling in the Boilers' 24-7 win over then number 2 Iowa. That's what we're going to talk about, Purdue football, whatever you want to talk about. But we will lead off by catching up with the news of the day. So Nick ROLOVICH, former Hawaii coach who took over at Washington State from Mike Leach, that would have been in 2019, Washington State football coach, refused to become vaccinated against COVID-19, a requirement for all state employees for the state of Washington. So he is out. So let's be careful with this topic, whether you're discussing it in the live chat or calling me about it, because I'm going to have to be a bit careful as well. Unfortunately, even though this is America and we should be able to say whatever we want, as long as it's not demeaning to anybody, or as long as it's not, demeaning to anyone in particular based on their race or religion or sexual preference or something like that, we should be able to say whatever we want. We should be able to just spew opinion as much as we would like. But we know that in our social media age, unfortunately, that's not the case. So I will be a bit guarded with my comments, but if you've been watching me long enough, you probably know where I stand on a number of these topics. I'm a man of freedom and liberties, civil liberties, freedom with some restraint in some cases, of course. So the governor, Washington, Jay Inslee, had set a deadline of Monday for thousands of state employees, including the Cougars coach, to be vaccinated. So he lost a job, and I believe 3 assistants lost their jobs as well. Oh, here they are. Ricky Lugo, John Richardson, Craig Stutzman, and Mark Weber also out, the university said, after not complying with Inslee's proclamation. His proclamation as the governor, my proclamation, that was issued in August. Governor Inslee, King Inslee, whatever you want to call him. Disheartening day for our football program, Washington State Athletic Director Pat Chun said, our priority has been, will continue to be the health and well-being of the young men. Defensive coordinator Jake Dickert has been elevated to interim head coach. His first game in charge will be Saturday at home against BYU. ROLOVICH, as is the case across the nation in almost every state, is the highest paid state employee, even at Washington State, yes, with an annual salary of more than $3 million in a contract that runs through 2025. It'll be interesting to see if there will be a buyout, or there's going to be contention there, I'm sure, regarding whether he met the stipulations of his contract. The university provided multiple educational sessions for its coaches and staff, and we could go through the number of reasons in which ROLOVICH gave as why he would not receive the vaccination. I'm not going to get into all of that. Basically, Washington State has dismissed its head coach, Nick ROLOVICH, since he refused to be vaccinated, and also 3 assistant coaches. So that's where we stand on that front, and many fronts across the country. If you've been paying attention at all, been paying attention, that's where we stand. All right, I'm going to need a hookup here because I failed to do so to get the phone lines. I got the phone lines rolling. I just got to get my earpiece in. I also want to make sure that I'm honoring all of you there in the live chat, because I want to hear from all of you, even if you don't choose to call in. So let's get to it. Oh, man, you guys are bringing it tonight. So I can only go back to 11:27, so that was 3 minutes before the show. We've got David here. Appreciate that. We got Exploring with Ben. Don't know what his deal is, but it appears as though he's got some adversity there because I can't see the entire conversation. Exploring with Ben. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So the Tennessee Titans win, and Mark's on tonight. Good night so far. Thank you, Exploring with Ben. Appreciate that. Eric, honesty. I wish we had some more gutsy offense. We have talent out the wazoo. Talking about those Oregon Ducks, they continue to struggle, and there continues to be a debate as to whether Oregon or Ohio State should be. Ooh, that sounds like a good video, actually. Oregon or Ohio State, who should be ranked higher? And if they finish tied, meaning both conference champions with 1 loss, having played, who should get into the playoffs? Ooh, I like that one. And I need to I actually need to record my Big Ten power rankings. We're going to start with the Big Ten. We'll go through the Power 5 conferences with my power rankings. Ooh, I like this Oregon, Ohio State vid. Thank you, Eric. That reminds me. I like that. Kyle, when he hears winter, he heads south. Boy, I tell you, Kyle, I'm going to be right there with you at some point in my life. I don't know if it's going to be after this winter or at some point later. We hope to get there. We hope to get there with you, Kyle. But too many factors in life right now to make that happen necessarily. Won't happen this winter because it's upon us. I'm not going to say winter hit today here in Connecticut, but it was a deep fall after close to 80-degree weather over the weekend. Bam, into the 50s, and it felt worse than that. Let me make sure our audio setup is correct for the call-in show. And yes, the phone lines are open at 860-499-3332. So again, Nick ROLOVICH out at Washington State. He and 3 assistant coaches for refusing to be vaccinated. Regardless of how you feel about that, I think I've made my point known. Also, Oregon, Ohio State, one of many scenarios that could play out if they tie with, I think, most of college football nation believing that the Buckeyes are the better team. Though they lost head-to-head on the field, they will have the better resume if it all plays out as expected, which, of course, it never does, but it's good for debate. And in this case, there's a decent enough chance that it's going to play out as a tiebreaker between Oregon and Ohio State of sorts that the College Football Playoff Selection Committee will have to sort out. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? The real MVP. How's it going, man?
It's going good. How about you?
I am good. I am good. What you got going tonight?
Oh, none much. None much. I'm just here listening to some football. Well, I'm going to answer the guy's question. Oregon should get in because they beat Ohio State, but Ohio State is going to get in.
Okay.
That's what I feel. I think, honestly, at the first ranking, they're going to have Ohio State over Oregon. I think that's going to come to a shock, and I know, Mark, you might be upset by that because of it was played out on the field, but the committee likes doing their own thing when determining teams. That is contradictory, has been proven contradictory. Let me put it that way.
The committee can decide either one, and they can easily defend it. Of course, if they go with Oregon, that's easily defended because they played on the field and they go with the head-to-head. If they choose Ohio State, so that first selection, the first college football playoff rankings will be released after the Ohio State-Penn State game on that Saturday. They're going to release them the next Tuesday. And right. Ohio State's going to rack up better wins between now and the end of the season. Conference championship game, Michigan State, Penn State. So the resume is going to just become stronger and stronger versus a weak Oregon resume. So they can go resume, Ohio State, or they can go head-to-head.
Right. I think they're going to go resume, and I also think Oregon's resume kind of hurt them because they haven't been crushing opponents. They've been skipping by. I mean, they've looked bad against bad teams. I think if they dominated everybody, then they would, Oregon would obviously be the case. But the only reason we're talking about this is Oregon has not played up to the standard for any team that has beaten Ohio State. If you look at that game, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if that is, in my opinion, the most surprising result of the season, just based on what you say now. If you brought in somebody who's never watched college football and watched both Oregon and Ohio State and tell them who won the game, everyone would say Ohio State. That's all I was going to say about that.
Yeah, it's so funny how many times people comment to this channel concerning who would win games. Because I apparently made a wrong call because so-and-so would beat so-and-so. But when the games actually are played, how many times does it happen that the would-be winner doesn't win? 41% of the top 25 games have been upsets. 41% of the top 25 games. Now, I'm not talking about top 25 teams playing each other. Just talking about anybody in the top 25. Yeah. So that includes all the give me games.
Right. I mean, Washington lost to Montana, and Washington was ranked 20th at the beginning of the season. So we've had rankings lose to FCS teams this year. Bad F. I mean, so it's a chaotic season. It's a 2007 season. I don't like the who would play who would beat who type thing because, I mean, you don't know. Nobody knows that. Anybody who thinks they know that hasn't watched enough college football. And, I mean, Texas A&M beat Alabama. The amount of people that thought that, pretty close to zero. So I don't go by that. There are a few sneaky good games this week, though, that not a lot of people.
Give them to me.
I think the first good game actually is Wednesday. Coastal Carolina goes on the road to play Appalachian State. We can see if Coastal Carolina is just beating up on bad teams, or they actually get to play a somewhat good when they go on the road to play Appalachian State.
And maybe to revise your evaluation there to real MVP, we can determine whether Coastal Carolina is just beating like horrible, deplorable teams, or they can actually beat like a marginal team, a mediocre team. Like App State is not what they typically are this year. They lost to Louisiana by 4 touchdowns. By 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And so I've got nothing against Coastal Carolina. I love the story last year, them playing BYU, them almost going undefeated, the whole deal. I love the story, love it, got nothing against them, except they make my life difficult. So I am rooting for them to lose because they continue to win against one of the worst schedules in college football. And so people just beat me over the head over where's Coastal Carolina in the rankings, where's Coastal Carolina in the rankings. So
you're telling me, Mark, that a 1-4 Arkansas State isn't worth it to you?
Yeah, it's I'm going to have to come up with some type of defense for that. I know it's going to be difficult, but believe it or not, I'm a bit hard on the.
You don't trust Butch Jones?
The Chanticleers.
Well, there's a few other games that I think that are good coming on. Let me go to my list. I've got a list of games here. Wisconsin plays Purdue this week. That'll be a good game.
I like it.
Purdue, this is their first time being ranked since 2007. Purdue was also had the longest stretch for a Power 5 team not to be ranked. So there's a fun token of information.
Okay.
Even Kansas was ranked before them because they were ranked later in 2007.
Yes, I was going to say, because that was their magic year, 2007, and then it was all downhill after that.
Yeah, poor Kansas. Now, in terms of, is this the most important? I mean, obviously, it's the most important game because it's the next game, but for Wisconsin and their season, I feel like a lot's riding on this game versus Purdue because they've already lost 3. They haven't beaten anybody really good yet, and Purdue's ranked. But you see what I'm saying there, Mark?
So you think there's a lot on the line for Wisconsin to accomplish what? With what end in sight? Because the coach is not. They could go 4-8 this year. They're not firing Paul Chryst for one bad season.
Well, if they want to do what they're normally expected to do, go 10-2 or 9-3.
Yeah,
this is a big game in my opinion. For them.
Sure. Well, they've only lost 2 games in the conference, so with the rest of these teams having lost 1 game, they've only lost to Michigan and
Notre Dame.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, Notre Dame outside the conference. But in the conference, they've lost to Michigan and Oh, my word. Penn State. They lost to Michigan and Penn State. So they have not lost to any of their competitors in the division. So they've only lost 2, and everybody else has lost 1. So they're still in the division race.
That's kind of crazy because they were written off pretty early.
Yeah, as soon as they, for example, they're playing Purdue. If they beat Purdue, they will suddenly be ahead of Purdue in the standings. They will both have 2 losses in conference, but they'll have the head-to-head against Purdue. And if they can just keep knocking off Minnesota, Purdue, and Iowa, they will have the head-to-head against all 3, and they will send each one of them to a second loss, and they'll win the division.
Right.
They're not playing like they should be able to accomplish that, but it wouldn't shock me. It's Wisconsin, and there are no great teams in that division.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So the next game. Okay. Well, this is going to be an interesting one. Clemson plays Pittsburgh. Who knew Clemson would play Pittsburgh this year, and Pittsburgh would be the ranked team?
Yeah.
How many people had that on their list?
No one.
Pittsburgh's favorite to win the ACC?
Are they really? I'm sure the percentage is minuscule, though, because I'm sure the percentages are like 8%, 6%, 6%, 5%. It's got to be all over the place because they're not a clear favorite. They're only 2-0 in the conference. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, in terms of Clemson, I was disappointed in them before Syracuse. But I thought Syracuse was the last chance I kind of gave them because it was off the bye. Maybe they had time to reinvent their offense, but they looked horrible. DJ Ungulalele, I don't know what happened to him. He looked great in those 2 games last year. And this year, he's just fallen off a cliff. Now, I know Travis Etienne isn't there, who's maybe the most valuable player for Clemson, even above Trevor Lawrence, and their offensive line has looked horrendous. But still, DJ just throws the ball 10, 15 yards. There was one play in that game against Syracuse where he had a cheerleader on the back. Mark, what is you notice about, did you see any of the Clemson-Syracuse game?
Oh, yeah. I watched it all.
Were you as shocked as I was that Clemson really couldn't do a whole lot on offense against Syracuse?
I was. Syracuse came in with some pretty good efforts against Wake Forest, Florida State. They lost both of those games on the last play of the game. But Florida State and, especially Florida State, not a very good football team. So, yeah, that does not speak volumes for Clemson getting back to where they should be, getting it right. Oklahoma's looked more like Oklahoma the last few weeks. Ohio State has looked more like Ohio State the last few weeks. Clemson continues to just either lose or struggle mightily.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I can't believe I'm saying this, but that running back, I think Tucker is his name for Syracuse, he looks like the best player on the field. Which I can't believe it's true, but that's what I saw. And there's one more game. Oh, yeah. USC plays Notre Dame. I have no idea what to expect from that game because I don't know what USC is going to do. I could see USC beating Notre Dame. I could see Notre Dame just dominating. I have no read on USC.
Well, Notre Dame's they're a more stable situation. I've got a pretty good idea what I will get out of Notre Dame, and they're not a great team this year, but they're a top 15 to 20 team in America, and USC's losing to Stanford and Washington, and not Washington State. They lost to Oregon State. They've lost to all sorts of.
They lost to Utah.
Lost to Utah.
Utah controls their destiny in the South.
Well, I still maintain some respect for Utah football. I know that they don't have one of their better teams this year, but they just wiped out Arizona State in the second half this past
but didn't their
weekend.
Quarterback just walk out? I'm pretty sure that was the team their quarterback just left them.
Well, that happened a few weeks ago.
That's hard for any program.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, I mean, there's not a whole lot of teams out there in the country that just have good enough backup quarterbacks to go and play and to dominate other teams in your division. So the Pac-12 this year.
Yep, it is. It is a mess and not very good. All right, man. Well, I appreciate the call. Let me keep moving here.
Yeah, it was good talking to you.
Absolutely. Have a good night, man.
You do the same.
All right. We got the calls piling up. Let's get to them right here at the Voice of College Football. I will answer this one question coming in from Addison, who asks, would Hugh Freeze take the LSU job? I believe Hugh Freeze would take the LSU job, but why would LSU offer Hugh Freeze? So LSU is in a pretty good position regarding money, facilities, prestige, everything. They're a top-level job. A top 10 job, no doubt. It could be argued a top 5 job when you add in money, facilities, recruiting footprint, etc. SEC is going to bring in more money with Texas and Oklahoma being added. But LSU, look at the last two coaches, and this is taking us back to 2005. Les Miles, Ed Ogeron. Les Miles, Ed Ogeron. Look at the character issues. They are not going to hire Hugh Freeze. I would be a bit surprised. Hugh Freeze, they're not going that direction. They have better candidates from a football standpoint, but they also have much better candidates from it's just not a good look. And it's not that I don't believe Hugh Freeze and other people deserve is not the right word, should be given second and third and fourth chances. I believe in all of that, but not where LSU should be going. All right, next up here on the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Ben.
Hey, Ben. What's going on, man?
Hey, not much. Hey, I just wanted to mention you got a super chat from Kyle Pickett, and he's got a question.
Oh, thank you for that. I hate to move.
I'll let you field that, and then I'm gonna let you field that, and then go from there.
Oh boy, here we go, Kyle, appreciate that. As you know, thank you so much for the contribution. What if? I don't know why "if" needs to be in quotations, but we'll go with it. What if Florida State wins out this season? Mark, curveball ACC. Okay, Florida State wins out. They are 2-4 currently. They would finish 8-4. But more importantly, in conference, they've only lost what? They're 2-2 in the conference, correct? Yeah, they lost to Jacksonville State and Notre Dame. They're 2-2 in the ACC. So they'd go to 6-2. That would include a win over North Carolina State. So they would need North Carolina State to lose to somebody else. As long as that happened, so they would still have work. They would still need help. For as pathetic as that sounds, they play in the ACC. You would think if a team won out that they would win the division, but they would need help concerning North Carolina State and Wake Forest. And they would need a lot of help concerning Wake Forest. So Wake Forest has not lost a game. I believe they're 3-0 in conference. Wake Forest needs to lose 3 times because Florida State lost head-to-head to Wake Forest. So for Florida State, for as ridiculous as it seems for them to run the table to get anywhere, even if they run the table, they need a lot of help. So I don't know if that answered the question. I could have been a bit sarcastic and said, what if Florida State wins out this season? Well, they'd be 8-4. That's the end. It's the answer to the question. But I just played out the scenarios. They need North Carolina State to lose once because they would win the tiebreaker with the Wolfpack, but they need Wake Forest to lose 3 times because they've already lost to Wake. So there you go, Ben. Thank you for pointing that out, though. And thank you, Kyle.
All right, well, I wanted to ask you. Well, actually, one thing I noticed when you're talking to the last caller, you seem pretty confident in Ohio State. You weren't talking. It didn't sound like you were mentioning it as a hypothetical of Ohio State winning out, but it just sounded like in your mind that it's just going to happen.
No, not at all.
I just kind of caught that. It's kind of funny.
I think they're the best team. Really? I do still think they're the best team in the Big Ten, but they haven't proven anything. Now the way things are shaping up thus far, Minnesota's become their best win. Minnesota's now Ohio State's best win, and people get on me. All sorts of people were jumping on me because I've got Ohio State ranked 15th, 14th. They haven't beaten anyone.
Yeah. I just kind of wondered where your head was. I mean, as far as that, because it just seemed maybe it's like Freudian slip type thing. I just thought I'd put back it up. Okay, so I got a question for you. Who do you think has the best offensive line in college football right now?
The best offensive line? Certainly not Oklahoma or Clemson. Georgia's way up there. Wisconsin doesn't have anything close to what they typically have. We've seen Oregon enough where they have had a top offensive line, but not this year. I think the best offensive line in college football either belongs to Georgia or Ohio State.
That's interesting. That's an interesting answer. So now I will, being a Michigan fan, I'm going to have to say Michigan. Okay. And I say it for this reason. One, we are number one in the Power 5 conferences of sacks allowed.
Okay.
And we're number one in all of college football when it comes to tackles for losses allowed.
Okay.
Those are 2 big statistics that I would look at when I'm judging an offensive line. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but if you compare the other teams on the list that are close to them, like Ohio State hasn't faced the defenses as good as teams Michigan has played collectively. For instance, Wisconsin, Nebraska, even Washington and Western Michigan statistically has a good defense, and I know they're the teams that they play is question, but statistically they have a good defense. But they did allow Pitt to score. Well, they beat Pitt, but they allowed them to score 40 some points. But maybe even. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean those teams statistically are pretty good defensively, and I look at Michigan and having done that, playing those teams on the offensive line, I would look at that to easily make an argument for them having the best offensive line.
Okay, well, I will say, Ben, that we certainly promote smart analysis here, and there you go. You brought your facts to the table. I certainly want to see that offensive line play Michigan State's defensive front in 2 weeks. That will be a big challenge for them, and of course Penn State just after that. But it makes a lot of sense what you just said, where Michigan's overall schedule's nothing to brag about. But defensively, yes, they have faced some better defensive teams than that comparison against Ohio State. Now, I don't know where Georgia ranks on these statistics that you just
Georgia's
mentioned.
Right there. I mean,
okay,
Georgia's right behind them. Georgia's number tied for tackles for loss. They're outnumbered. They're tied for number 5 with Cal, and they're and as far as sacks allowed, well, actually Georgia's a little bit farther down the list as far as sacks allowed. No, Georgia's tied for 4 with sacks allowed, but in the Power 5, they're right there.
And Georgia's played.
I mean, there's
Arkansas.
basically Georgia's right under Michigan as far as in the Power 5 conference.
And Georgia's played Arkansas, Clemson, Kentucky, even South Carolina's got a capable defense.
So they have a very good argument for that offensive line. Man, that's tough. These Georgia defense and offense, both sides of the ball, scary. Well, anyways, that's kind of wanted to segue from that into my big concerns about Michigan, and I'm just gonna kind of lay out. I seen your the show that you had with the guys from Michigan doing the and they were talking about, you know, Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy, and having said that about Michigan's offensive line is what really makes me nervous about Cade McNamara.
Okay.
Because his production, when I watch the games, he's got time. And it scares me that he doesn't get better production with that amount of time that he has to throw the ball. And that's something that really makes me nervous. And I see that, and when we're watching that talk, that's what I'm thinking about when I was watching you guys discuss that. And I think I like Jade. I mean, I thought Cade McNamara did great last year. Just this year, when I watch him play, he's left a lot on the field, and I hope either one or two things happen: that he gets it together, or they make the move to JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, but wouldn't you have to be in a situation against a good team or anybody that you're trailing or not productive on offense before you would make that move? If they continue to get leads on teams and they play from in front, then he's not going to get pulled. You know, at what point are you going to get pulled?
Yeah, I understand that as looking at it from that perspective, and he hasn't turned the ball over, which is, I mean, one interception. He's got that, going for him. Hasn't taken sacks, but that's partly, I think a lot to do with that offensive line, as much as it has to do with him, at least. And, and that's a good point. But at the same time, when you look when you look at who they're playing next, Northwestern, if you're going to make that change, Northwestern's the time to do it. You have the bye week before you're going in to play Northwestern. And if he's not going to make that improvement, make steps forward, then you're looking at what's your ultimate goal for the season. Is your goal to be 10-2, or is your goal to maybe they could win the Big Ten this year? But what about the national championship? I don't think with unless he's taking steps forward, they even have a shot. Because you're looking to go against Georgia, looking to go against other teams. If they, I think just like Steve Dace said on this program, the ceiling is higher with JJ McCarthy.
Well, there's no question about that. Yeah, of course.
So you feel if he just continues to play like the level that he's been playing at, that they should keep him in?
Well, against the defenses you just mentioned, since they've played better defenses recently since they stepped into the Big Ten, the Wisconsin game, the Nebraska game, he's basically completed roughly 60% of his passes, and he's been throwing for about 250 yards. And I think he had 3 touchdowns in the Wisconsin game. And like you said, he turned it over for the first time against Nebraska. Well, I would think that if just play out the scenarios. Okay, they'll beat Northwestern this week. Then they play Michigan State. Let's say he has a typical Cade McNamara first half against Michigan State. He's 7 for 12, and he's thrown for 100 yards, and they're up at halftime 14-10. Well, he's not going to get benched. hasn't turned the ball over. They continue into the second half. They win the game 27-17. Okay. And then the Penn State game, the same thing. You know, he's not going to get benched. I don't believe, I might be wrong, but he's not going to get benched until he plays horribly, or even if he's played a decent game, but they're behind and they need a spark. There was a situation.
I didn't realize. I thought his passing percentage, I thought it was at like 47%. I did think it was lower when I was going kind of on that line. I didn't realize it was as high as 60%. Not super high, but it's sufficient.
Yeah, Cade McNamara against Nebraska and Wisconsin, their last two games, I'm almost positive that he was well over 60%. You know, against Nebraska, let's see, he was 22 for 38. That's probably in the high 50s, something in that range. 22 for 38 for 255.
Well, yeah, that's pretty decent. I mean, that's not, great, but I mean, it got to, I don't know, that's 50%. How did he, I thought his QBR rating was like, never mind. I don't remember. I don't have those stats in front of me.
Against Wisconsin, 17 for 28 for 197, 2 touchdowns. And for the season, he's at 60.5%. Still with us? I think we lost him. All right.
No, I'm still here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking about. I thought you were. I was just thinking. Well, anyway. Well, yeah. I guess. I mean, that does make a stronger point for Keith. Keith. I thought is. Yeah, still. 50% against Nebraska is still not great, and I really hope that he. Just as a Michigan fan, I really hope he makes some better strides, especially hitting the deep ball. He's missing a lot of things down the field. I watched a lot of the breakdowns. They have Michigan Insider has them, and and they don't harp. And I don't mean to harp on them too bad because that's I don't want to see that ceiling right there, and then we go into Ohio State, and he's not able to make the big plays for us. And that's where I stand as a fan. I think, if it's not going to be this year, then we might as well have McCarthy in there and get him and get as many reps for him as we can. If Cade McNamara isn't making forward steps, and that's what I mean, like making more progress. And from what you said, there may be more progress, and I may have to digress. But anyways, I'll let the next caller get on. I'm kind of rambling. You kind of hit me with a surprise with that, with those statistics there, and I would have to look it up, and I don't want to waste time anymore on your show. So,
well, I appreciate the call. It is definitely an interesting topic concerning Michigan football and what the expectations are and where they can go under Cade McNamara. My thought is that, it was brought up, the college football playoff and Michigan. Whoa, hey, whoa. Michigan needs to, first of all, they just need to win each week. So obviously the players and the coaches themselves need to be just focused, not even on Michigan State, focused on Northwestern. Be focused on Northwestern. Northwestern just beat Rutgers worse than Michigan did. Focus on Northwestern. This Michigan football program has accomplished nothing since 2004. So beat, when I make that statement, I'm talking about winning championships. They won a Sugar Bowl in 2011. They won some bowl games. They finished in the top 10 a few times. But in terms of winning a championship, yeah, win the game in front of you. But in terms of a larger goal, the college football playoff. How about win the division? Win the division. Get to Indianapolis. Win the division. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Drew. How are you?
Hey, Drew. I'm good.
So I want to talk a little bit about Wake Forest football, but also just the ACC generally.
Love it.
So what I think a lot of people are missing out on right now is, so if you look at the Atlantic Division, Wake's 4-0 in the division, I mean.
Yep.
So Wake's 4-0, NC State's 2-0, Clemson's 3-1, and Wake and NC State are going to play each other. So basically, you could have someone win the ACC championship with one loss, but have 3, maybe even 4 top 25 wins. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just a homer. I went to school in North Carolina, but I think people are kind of sleeping, and it's very easy to say, oh, the ACC sucks. When other conferences have parity, it's a sign of strength. But, you know, maybe Syracuse isn't that bad. Oh, no, couldn't be. The ACC just sucks. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, and there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, but also I've got to push back on it to a certain extent. The reason, and I want to present myself as a fair and neutral analyst here, because I was certainly campaigning the ACC as possibly the best conference in college football in 2016 because of the results on the field. So when I say that the ACC is not playing well, I won't say that the ACC sucks, although that's probably come out of my mouth a couple of times. I'm looking at the performance outside the conference. Obviously, everybody jumps once they start playing conference games. Every conference is the same. They all play 500 football because everyone wins every game and everybody loses every game. So the conference games only show us how balanced the conference is, or top heavy or otherwise. That's all that shows us. Now, the ACC has performed by far the worst against the other 4 conferences in the last 4 or 5 seasons. So that's just fact. Now, let's look at this season. Like you say, I produced a video a couple of weeks ago because Cincinnati was gaining all this momentum. Once they beat Notre Dame, everybody just thought, okay, they beat Notre Dame, so they should be in the playoff. Like, it's a one-game season. Well, I sized up Cincinnati's schedule and Wake Forest's schedule, and there's no comparison between the two. Wake Forest's schedule's so much more difficult than Cincinnati. It's not even close. And people just aren't anticipating that Wake Forest is going to be able to make it through their final 4 games. But we talk hypotheticals here. And if Wake Forest goes undefeated and wins the ACC, there's no question they should be in the playoff. Now, if they lose 1 game and win the ACC, precedent shows us that there have only been 2 situations in which a conference champion lost 1 game and missed the playoff.
Okay, then can I ask you something now?
Yeah.
What if NC State beats a top 10 Wake Forest team and also beats a top 25, say like Virginia Tech or Pitt, then and they're ACC champs. Then you have a team with 1 loss, but 3 quality top 25 wins. Then, I mean, is it you just throw them out and say, well, it definitely goes to the Pac-10 or Big Ten?
Well, I don't throw them out, not me personally, because I try to be objective and look at the resume. So if you're going to compare,
I'm just asking your opinion. Sure.
So if you're going to take a NC State team that, to your point, let's say they run the table, they're going to have wins against Clemson and Wake, and well, the North Carolina game is not going to be as big as we would have thought. But obviously,
but say like a VC or Pitt in the ACC
in the
championship as well.
game.
Assume they're ranked in the top 25. Yeah.
Yeah. So they'll probably have 3 top 25 wins, and they'll have a sampling of other quality wins, what I would consider quality wins, depending on where BC finishes and Louisville, etc., in North Carolina. And well, that NC State team with 1 loss, and so they lost by 2 scores to Mississippi State, who's probably going to be like a 6-6 team. So that's not the best win on the board, or the best loss, I should say, in terms of a quality loss. You know, they lost by a couple scores. They lost to Mississippi State. It's an okay loss. It's to a decent team, but wasn't down to the wire. So it's not a great loss.
For sure, yeah.
Now their resume is not going to stack up against a Big Ten champion with one loss. It's just not going to be the same as a team,
an undefeated Wake. Or to your point, yeah.
Oh, if they're undefeated, if Wake's undefeated, let me put it this way. If Wake's undefeated and they don't make the playoff, then I don't know why we're playing football. I don't know what we're doing. I will be turning this table over and ranting and railing for a week, because I'll be like, oh, what were they supposed to do? I don't know why we're even playing the games. Why were they traveling all over the place, beating teams on their schedule? Now, if they've got one loss, somebody's going to be left out. Most likely somebody's going to be left out if they have one loss and they're being compared to other conferences with one loss. So that comes down to the eyeball test, which I hate, and the resume.
No, definitely. No, and I hear you, and I agree. Honestly, I'm more pulling for Wake. I'm looking for the undefeated season, but
I am too.
I figured not many people are that interested. But
I'm a big Wake fan.
I wanted to rant a little bit about North Carolina football. Oh, for sure.
I'm a huge Wake fan this year, because I not to cut you off, I just want to make the statement that I have many times been on here talking about the outstanding job that Dave Clawson does there. And number two, I have been.
Sure. Yeah, I've seen it.
Wake is almost like a default answer for a lot of ACC football fans. Like SEC fans use Vandy, and it doesn't make any sense. Like when they're just talking about a team that doesn't really matter, they'll throw in Wake. I'll be like, well, Wake goes 7-5 or 8-4 every year and goes to bowl games most of the time. So they're really not the team that you're looking for to make fun of. So, but obviously that goes back decades.
I mean, it was 15 years ago,
sure.
But yeah, but still, it's our life. You know, it's not like it's the 50s. Like,
yeah, so I would love to see.
But,
I just want to see the committee squirm, and I want to see new blood, fresh blood, and I would love to see a story like Wake Forest goes undefeated, and there's no way they could be left out of the playoff. That would be just the most insane robbery in the history of athletics. I just couldn't even compare it to anything else. If they run the table.
I agree. All right, I got one more thing for you, and then I'll let you go. I'll probably just leave on this. It's more of a question. I guess you can finish it. But, and maybe this isn't a good way of putting it. I don't mean like sell me on Notre Dame like it's your job, but this might make a lot of listeners mad. I hate Notre Dame. But even objectively, if we're looking at their strength of schedule and how they've performed, they barely beat FSU, who Wake beat comfortably by 3 touchdowns, just saying. But they also barely beat Toledo. They kind of struggled. It really was a 1-possession game against Purdue. I guess that looks a lot better now. But if you're being objective about Notre Dame, their best win is against Virginia Tech, or I guess Purdue now. We'll see how that winds up looking at the end of the season. But why are people like, oh no, they're still a top 10 team? To me, it almost seems like they're getting rewarded for losing. I get they have a good loss, but like that shouldn't benefit you. All right, Mark, I'll let you go.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll comment on that in just a second. Well, yeah, if you have a difficult schedule and you lose the games, well, then those are still losses, but there is a difference. So we're in the business of evaluation. If we weren't, if this was the NFL, then nobody needs to evaluate anything, because the standings dictate everything, and you earn your playoff spot based on wins and losses. That's all there is to it. Nobody needs to evaluate anything. All that's just window dressing. All those power rankings in the NFL and all the discussion, it doesn't matter, because the playoff is determined by the standings. Cut and dry. But we're in the business of evaluation in college football. We've got to make comparisons and evaluations. Well, Notre Dame's loss to Cincinnati, was it a razor close loss? No. Were they Were they outclassed most of the game? Yes. Was it a blowout? By no stretch. No. They were within 4 points, 17-13 with 4 or 5 minutes left. They had a chance to win the game, but they were outplayed in the game at home. So is it a good loss? Well, I wouldn't categorize as some amazing game that they barely lost, but they lost to what we are considering to be a really good team. And what catapults these conversations is we're basing Cincinnati's season on beating Notre Dame and how good Notre Dame supposedly is. So if anybody wants to say, well, Notre Dame's really not that good, and then turn around and say Cincinnati should be in the playoff because they beat Notre Dame, because that's Cincinnati's resume. Notre Dame. So how good is Notre Dame? I think they're a top 15 to 20 team in the country, but that's my opinion. That's not proof. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Nick. How's it going?
Hey, Nick. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to piggyback a little bit off this last caller regarding Michigan, if that's okay.
Sure.
The quarterback situation at Michigan is actually interesting. I don't think over the last 2 games that Ohio State has played with C.J. Stroud that you can say J.J. McCarthy is better. Like, C.J. Stroud has been, like, and let's just preface it with this, right? If there's a quarterback controversy at Michigan, it's a controversy in place to beat Ohio State. Like, I respect Michigan State. I respect Penn State. I respect a lot of teams all over the country and in the Big Ten, but it doesn't matter if you're not considering Ohio State. If everyone's being honest, that's what it comes down to. C.J. Stroud is on fire. And you're talking about Cade McNamara, who is 6-0 as Michigan starter. You're going into a bye week, and people are still talking about a quarterback change. But J.J. McCarthy, I mean, he might be an upgrade as far as talent goes. We don't know anything about game management skills. We've seen him in kind of the oddest positions. Like, you can say that he's been in the game in critical plays. But at least in my mind, if it's not garbage time, he has not completed 4 downs. Just managing the game. That seems kind of ridiculous to me. And anyone who's calling in saying, like, this is a quarterback controversy, they're thinking about Ohio State. Can we beat Ohio State? Can we, like, think about this kid. J.J. McCarthy, very skilled. They got it. But has he done anything really critically in a game that would say to you, okay, this guy can, if we need him to make a play against a team that is more talented than we are, but we just need him to make that play, can he do it? And I think the answer is right now, I'd say no.
So it's an astute comment because the probability is no. Is he capable in terms of talent? Yes, he could pull off a play here and there, but the probability is no.
And that's what's interesting. I feel like people are calling in, commenting. I see this all over the place. It's irritating. Like, the strength, like, you got to think about the strength of this Michigan team. Solid defense, playmakers on offense, and that might sound controversial. It's not, because you've had Dalen Baldwin had a breakout game. Wide receiver Roman Wilson, before he got injured, 6 receptions, 80-plus yards. Cornelius Johnson has had big plays. I actually kind of think this offense might be in need of a quarterback kind of like Cade McNamara, a guy who isn't flashy, who spreads the ball around, is not going to put it in harm's way, and who, honestly, if you're watching Michigan games, he has made more critical third down plays than we've seen in a long time in this program. And that's not to harp on J.J. McCarthy. We haven't seen him that much. But, like, my opinion on this whole matter is, like, if people are going to clamor for J.J. McCarthy to step in, then you need to make a case to me that he's better than C.J. Stroud. And after these last 2 weeks, C.J. Stroud is on fire. Like, I don't think people understand this. Ohio State was having critical issues at the quarterback position, at least among the fan base. Like, people were talking all this other stuff. He gets benched, quote unquote benched, with an arm injury. And since that point, since that whole media narrative, he's been on fire. And it's like, at least from a Michigan perspective, throwing J.J. McCarthy, a true freshman, he might have gotten some snaps here and there in critical moments, which is interesting. That's another topic for another day. But I mean, I'm looking at the guy who has game experience, because that's the only chance that Michigan has. Especially, I mean, we've known Ohio State, they have the best wide receiver core in the country. It's not even close. So C.J. Stroud is on fire, and I don't know. What are your thoughts on that whole situation? Because it's kind of I feel like this thing's heating up a little bit.
Well, the earlier Michigan caller, I thought, was very astute, brought some great perspective on the offensive line performance and then into the quarterback situation. And so I thought it was a great call. But had we not been running on and on and on and on, I was going to get to another portion of that. And that's, what are the expectations of the fan base, and what are the expectations that should be reasonable in this situation? Because he had mentioned trying to match up against Georgia in a playoff game. And I'm like, and again, we didn't get to that part of the discussion. I didn't respond, but Michigan should not be thinking about playoffs, getting to the playoffs, anything like that.
No.
Win the division. Of course, win the game in front of you, which is going to lead to a division championship. But that's all that can be controlled right now is, man, if that team beats Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State, or at least 2 of the 3 that will place them in the Big Ten championship game, to me, that's a significant accomplishment for this football team and program.
Mark, I agree with that. But if Michigan beats Michigan State coming up, and I think, like, no disrespect to Northwestern, but I mean, let me just take your words. Worst team in the Big Ten, right? Like, I don't expect them to put up 60, but we're not going to learn anything from Northwestern. And I just want to get your opinion on this. Michigan versus Michigan State. With what we have seen throughout the year, if Michigan beats Michigan State, have you learned a lot more about Michigan with comparing them to what they would do against Ohio State? If they beat Michigan State, who cares about the score? I actually feel like, and I think a lot of people don't want to admit this, I think Michigan could be 11-0 going into the Ohio State game, and we really don't know if they're good.
So the Penn State and Michigan State games aren't going to tell you enough.
If Sean Clifford's out,
well, yeah, that's huge, and that's actually to spin this in another
but
direction.
he's probably going to be out though.
Sure. So to spin this into another direction, this I'm going to give Jim Harbaugh.
This is a real thing. Michigan could go 11-0. Like I know it's a sensitive so there's a lot to be played, but there is a talent gap between Michigan and Michigan State. Penn State doesn't have a quarterback if Sean Clifford's out. There is a very real possibility that Michigan goes into that game 11-0 and gets smacked by Ohio State.
Sure.
That is
yep
on the table.
So you are proposing what to be done with this quarterback situation?
I'm proposing that, in my personal opinion, I think you go with J.J. McCarthy. I think you have to go with him. I think that there is a possibility that Cade McNamara has another level to him. But I don't think you can take that risk when you have a quarterback who has displayed the arm talent that he has so far in the season, when you've given him limited reps and he just seems to be a playmaker. I think it's a less of a question than people want to admit. In my opinion, I would go 50-50 into this Northwestern game over the practice reps. I think it should be a real quarterback controversy. And I'm not talking about public opinion. I'm thinking in practice and coaches, everybody can say what they want about Cade McNamara being 6-0, and I respect him. I do. But if anyone has played sports ever, sometimes you just got to put the ball in the right player's hands. And I think the coaches are looking out for that. And from what I've seen so far, limited action. I'm not saying I would put J.J. McCarthy as a starter. But I think if you want to beat Ohio State, and we've seen what C.J. Stroud has done, and the defense is coming together. Mark, you said this. You stabled off the haters. They're coming together. Ohio State is the best team in the Big Ten. It's not a question. They have too much talent. Not a question. You're sitting undefeated right now on a bye week before a putrid opponent. And you have a in-state rival when everyone is getting heated up for this. This is so great. Everything is it. And there is a massive talent gap between you and them. And if you beat them, you have a legitimate shot to create this national narrative to challenge Ohio State. You put that gunslinger in the pocket and you see what happens. That's my opinion.
Well, fortunately for Michigan, they have, either by design or just wanting to get him reps and keep him happy, they've given J.J. McCarthy reps. We saw last week Penn State, once Clifford got hurt, take Juan Roberson, be completely intimidated by the situation, not prepared, not ready. J.J. McCarthy has been given the reps in key situations, like you said, in kind of awkward key situations, but in meaningful snaps. And the other question you got to ask yourself is, can we really imagine J.J. McCarthy being worse than Cade McNamara? And when I say worse, I don't mean that Cade McNamara is not doing a capable job. I just mean, do we really think J.J. McCarthy is not going to at least play at that level? Let's say J.J. McCarthy just basically replaces Cade McNamara. Basically, statistically and in every, it's going to look different, but in terms of efficiency and explosiveness and everything, he's Cade McNamara. Well, you haven't lost anything, and you've actually prepared your 5-star with meaningful reps against great competition for next year. So I can agree with your angle on this.
If all I'm saying is, if Jim Harbaugh is looking at beating Ohio State, you put J.J. McCarthy in the game as a starter. I think that we've had a lot of storylines. You know, we got that whole Michigan State, Penn State, Iowa. I think this is coming to a boiling point, and you have a stud in C.J. Stroud, who might not be the highest stud as a quarterback in college football, but he's got, doesn't matter, he's got one of the most talented wide receiver rooms in the country, and got to throw it in your playmaker's hands. So anyway, thanks, Mark. I'll let you go.
Yep. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. CJ Stroud also has one of the top offensive lines in the country. All right. And I'm sure this is going to happen. If Ohio State does run the table, win the Big Ten, I'm sure everyone who blasted me after they lost to Oregon and looked horrible against Tulsa, and I said, I'm not guaranteeing it, but don't be surprised if Ohio State runs the table, still wins the Big Ten. All those people that blasted me and said that I was crazy, I'm sure they will come back and apologize. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Dave.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, okay. Hey, that was an interesting talk about Michigan. I just wanted to ask you a question. If Ohio State played Oregon today, this week, in Eugene, and you were handicapping the game, what would you get? What would it be?
Ohio State at Oregon this week. Ohio State wins 37-31.
So you give Ohio State 6 points, or you give Oregon 6 points?
I don't necessarily think. I just came up with a score of the type game I think it would be. I wouldn't think that the spread should be that high. 3 or 4.
I know Oregon just barely beat Cal at home, though, so
They
that's
barely
kind of
beat
an odd
Cal
thing.
and Arizona and Fresno State and all sorts of teams. They saved their best for the Buckeyes, is what they did.
Yeah, I saw that. So I know in your rankings, you have to figure in resume and all that kind of stuff, and you're watching the games very intently. But if somebody just asked you who are the 4 best teams in college football right now, regardless of who they play, regardless of what their record is,
the 4 best teams,
what would you say?
in college? Do we have a healthy Sean Clifford at Penn State? I consider them. Probably not put them in, but they'd be close. I would consider. I don't think there's any doubt for me that Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State, not in that order, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. And then I'm going with a 4th team as Oklahoma.
I think that's what I would have picked too, especially the way Oklahoma looked with their new quarterback last week or a few days ago. He was incredible. I mean, I think Oklahoma's got themselves a quarterback. So
yeah.
And another question I wanted to ask you was all the coaching stuff that's going on, USC and now LSU and to a lesser degree WSU. Obviously, the coaching carousel has started kind of early this year. Just curious, if you asked every AD of every FBS school, they could choose any coach they wanted other than Nick Saban and the coach currently on their staff, what name do you think would come up more than any others?
If they just want to win football games?
Or whatever. I mean, isn't that the whole object of hiring a coach?
Well, you would like your head coach not to win football games, but then run your program amok and do stupid things and have NCAA violations or whatever. So just win football games. Okay, well,
whatever standard you want. Whatever standard you want to use within the parameters that I laid out, whatever you want to do.
And we're talking about any coach on any level, whether they've got a job or not.
Let's not go to the pros, okay? Let's not say a pro coach. Let's just keep it in college.
All right. You just killed my choice, but
yeah, well, I was thinking of that too before I even said my question.
Best coach to hire. I would hire the second best coach in college football, if we could take him from anywhere, I still think is probably Dabo Swinney. But in terms of guys that are being talked about as candidates that would be interested, I think that Matt Campbell's probably the best coach who can show that he can build a program and hold it together and win games.
And where did he coach? He coached in Toledo before?
Yes.
Before I?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, I was just thinking it would be Ryan Day. I just think that I am a Buckeye fan, but I also used to live in Eugene, so I got my foot in the Oregon world a little bit too, so. But I just think he's an amazing coach. Amazing too strong word, but I think he's a very good coach. And I would just, other than Nick Saban, I think I would pick him for to lead my team.
Yeah, it's an excellent decision. He certainly is off to a great start at Ohio State. Yep.
Okay, well, I just wanted to get your feedback on those few issues. Thanks a lot for talking to me, Mark.
Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. You know, the only thing we don't know about Ryan Day compared to other coaches, and the same thing could be said about Lincoln Riley, is they were both set up with the keys to success. And so Ryan Day's ability to sustain this is impressive, but his ability to sustain it maybe 2 or 3, 4 years from now will be even more impressive. And again, this is not something that he was tasked with, so he can't accomplish this, but it is impressive to see a coach go in and build something where there never was anything. Bill Snyder at Kansas State, Matt Campbell at Iowa State, and others. All right. We have reached the end of the caller line, believe it or not. And I think I'm going to work on some Big Ten power rankings. I wanted to have those out tomorrow, and I forgot that I didn't even work on those. But I wanted to do power rankings this week for all the conferences and check out the top 25 that actually makes sense. And certainly you can criticize it and let me know. But if I would appreciate that you would let me know why you criticize it. The people that just call me an idiot, okay, I really don't know, or just say this makes no sense. They're really not paying attention, or they don't have the comprehension skills to take that in. But I think I may size up this Oregon-Ohio State argument because I think it's a good one, and people seem to be interested in what could possibly happen there. Oregon 13-1, or I guess it would be at 12-1 at that point. Oregon 12-1, Ohio State 12-1, both conference champions. Who would get in? And somebody mentioned that Yahoo's reporting that there will be additions to the American Conference. since they're losing 3 of their current members to the Big 12. So they've added some teams. I didn't see who those were, but they are adding some teams. I thought I jotted down some other ideas for videos because I thought you guys had kind of sparked me on a few. But we will be here throughout the week. Tomorrow, we've got a 1 o'clock Miami show on the Miami channel. So check out our live stream on Miami football. 1:15 actually is when we get to start that. So about 1:15 on the Miami channel. And then we go at 5:30 right here and on the Iowa channel with Iowa Live. And then at 8 o'clock Eastern time with Nebraska Live right here at the Voice of College Football. Lock it in right here. Please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe and check out. Okay, if you're on Instagram, please look me up. You're not going to find a whole lot there. My Instagram account, we had about 2,000 on there, and it got hacked. And so it was taken down. So I just restarted Instagram. I've got all of about 15 people on there. So please find me on Instagram, and we will start to promote that because we've got to get all these avenues revving up and running. YouTube, Instagram, memberships, possibly YouTube memberships. We're going to look into that, see what we could offer you there. Patreon, please join us on Patreon. I had another successful week. I'm not like having a crazy week and then a down week. Like I am hitting 60% like against the spread every week. And if you follow wagering, you know that that's going to do just fine. You have to hit about 52 to 53% to make money. So that's 60% or so. 11-7 against the spread this past weekend. That's 61%. That was 63% the week before, and the week before, and the week before, and the week before, and the week before. Hitting that 60% plus mark every week. So 11-7 against the spread. Join us on Patreon. You get my picks. You also get the selection from 20 media members. So Steve Dace, Tony Gerdeman, The Wholesome One, Steve Hellwagon, Kevin Noon, all sorts of folks that you see on here on a regular basis. 20 media members, their predictions on the 12-pack that I select. And again, you get my predictions well over 60% against the spread. That's going to make you money, and about 80% against the money line, which, consider this, in the top 25 going into last Saturday, 41% of the games involving top 25 teams. And I'm not talking about top 25 teams playing each other. I'm talking about any top 25 games. So that means even the give-me's, 41% of those games involving top 25 teams this year, upsets against the Vegas spread. That's incredible. That means my money line record of pushing 80% means quite a bit. So we're close to 80% against the spread. Money line, 60% plus. I'd have to do the math, but 11-7, 61% this past weekend. And so please check us out on Patreon. Go to Voice of College Football. Check that. Sorry. MarkRogersTV on Patreon. Or just grab the link in the description section of any of the videos. Patreon. Please join us there. And appreciate those who have recently joined. You also get an insider look. And keep in mind, for those of you who are listening, watching, who are on Patreon, you do get an exclusive live stream per week, per request. So I'm not going to just jump on and do a live stream for the hell of it that nobody's watching. So per request, exclusive live stream there on Patreon. So 3 live shows tomorrow: Miami at 1:15, Iowa at 5:30, Nebraska at 8. And I think we've loaded you up with information. So no more. Let's just look at tomorrow. Miami, Iowa, Nebraska live streams. Thank you so much, everybody that called in, everybody that's on the live chat. Thank you so much for your support. And when I say support, I mean in any way. Hit the like button, subscribe, share the videos out on social media, contact people the old-fashioned way. Just tell them directly, hey, we talk college football and the Voice of College Football. Get on over here, because we are open to any and all fan bases, of course, right here at the Voice of College Football. If you have any recommendations for videos you would like for me to produce, hit me up at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. and we will see you next time. That's 1:15 Miami Channel on Tuesday.